Where's your tail? Hello, my name is Megan. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my MSc in sports medicine that I'm doing at Leeds, and I'm going to be talking about term 1. Also, if you can hear a little pause in the background, I have a little someone who I am dog sitting today. Henley, do you want to come meet people? Look! Hey! It's Henley. Whoa. I'm just over halfway through the first term now, so I've got a pretty good grasp on what is going on. So I'm going to talk about the Masters in general, what I'm doing on the Masters, and the different modules and how they are all examined. The Masters that I'm doing is a Masters of Science, and it is in Sports and Exercise Medicine, and this is at the University of Leeds. With this Masters, there is an option of doing it full-time over a year or part-time over 2 years. So full-time over a year is pretty self-explanatory. You do the course full-time over a year. And part-time is you don't do half of the course for double the time. You do term 1 is full-time, and then you have a year off, and then term 2 and 3 are full-time. So you are doing it over 2 years, but it's not sort of part-time that whole time. I'm personally doing it part-time so that in the year off I can get some other exams sorted out as well. Also, I'll talk a bit at the end about how much time it's taking up, but that gives another reason why I'm not doing it full-time for a whole year, because I would definitely burn out. A lot of this course is self-directed learning, so it is a postgraduate course. It is a master's course. There are set teaching days, so the teaching days are Wednesdays. This roughly works out as every other Wednesday you are in campus in Leeds for the day. And then on the Wednesdays that you're not, you have online teaching that is recorded as well if you're not able to attend those online days. This is so that it fits in with the NHS study leave period over 2 years if you are doing it part-time. On our course, there are medics, there are physios, and we have a sports therapy chap as well. And for the first time this year in the Masters, they have intercalating medical students. So they need to have done 3 years of their undergraduate MBBS to be able to come and intercalate in the Masters in Sports Medicine. So there are 3 main modules that you cover in the first term. All of them have a prefix of SPSC because it's sports science. The first one is SPSC 5130, and then M, I presume that stands for module. And this is your functional sports anatomy and clinical assessment. You've then got SPSC 5132, which is your MSK injuries and sports injuries. And then you've got SPSC 5134M, and that is the Sports and Exercise Medicine Practitioner 1. So I'll go into the details of each of those modules and what we cover in those modules in more detail in a bit. For now, I'll go through what we do on a typical day when we're on campus in Leeds. So the teaching days are 9 until 6. So they're long days, but if you're travelling quite a way for it, like I am, and like someone else is travelling all the way from down south, you want to make the most of the contact hours you have. So from 9 until 10, we have a lab session where we are looking mainly at electromyography or EMG. From 10 till 12, we've then got a session in the dissection lab. So we aren't dissecting, we have all pro-sections out. So pro-sections are when it's already been dissected by someone else. In the anatomy suite, there are tables of dissected pro-sections. There's 2 anatomy tutors, Adele and Ruth, and there are set tables, so there's normally about 8 tables, and you rotate around the different stations looking at bones, looking at muscles, looking at nerves. On each of the tables, it's got prompt sheets of what you might want to look at in that specimen, ask you questions about, for example, nerve supply or the action of the muscles, and the tutors are there to help guide you, and they're really good at showing individual bits of the pro-sections as well and answering any queries that you have. Then you have lunch from 12 till 1. So we have been going to the medical building, which is the Worsley building on level 7, where they've got a cafe, and just hanging out there. And then from 1 till 6, you've got classroom teaching. So this can be on common injuries of whatever you're doing that day. It can be on physio intervention, it can be on surgical intervention. You practice doing the examination of things, so you practice examining each other. Embedded in that from 5 till 6 is a wrap-up session at the end of the day that the course leaders do, and that can be sort of case studies that they've got to present. It can be any questions. The other day we went through what the exams will be like in January. So that's the general format of each day. There are 2 other additional days as well that are slightly different. So one is a pitch side skills training day where you assess the acutely unwell patient, so A to E assessment, spinal injury, head injury, and how to use different bits of equipment, and that's a really practical hands-on day. And then you've also got a session in the Sports and Exercise Medicine Clinic in York, and that is on a weekend in December that's allocated to you. I haven't done that yet, so I don't know what I'm doing in that, but you've also got that as an extra day. Going through the modules in a bit more detail. So the first one is SPSC 5130, and that's the Functional Sports Anatomy and Clinical Assessment. So the study days that I mentioned on campus in Leeds, they are split into anatomical areas that we focus on that day. So there's shoulder, knee, ankle and foot, hip and pelvis, and elbow, forearm and hand. Yes. This module focuses on the normal anatomy of things, and that's where the things like the dissection lab come in and going through the normal anatomy and muscular function. Assessment-wise, there are 2 pieces of in-course assessment for this. So the first one is a poster presentation, and this is done quite early on in the course, and it's a group presentation, so it gets you integrated into the student group and you work together to present a poster. And then you've also got a summative MCQ, so multiple choice question exam. And this takes place over an hour. Currently it is online. I don't know what it's going to be like in the future, but that is again towards the end of the semester. There's also then 2 of the exams in January after the Christmas break. So there's an anatomy spotters where you go into the dissection lab, and there's pins in different prosections, and you need to identify the muscles, the innervation, the insertion, the attachment. And then there's also a case-based short answer exam, and that's on that same day in January. The next module, so module 2, is SPSC 5132M, and this is MSc Medicine and Sports Injuries. So this is the practical application of the anatomy that you learn about. This includes the SEM clinic that you've got in York later on in the semester. So what we'd focus on in the study days for this would be the things in the afternoon. So where we have the teaching on different pathologies and different injuries, that can be included in that part. Coursework wise for this during the first semester, so you'd have an individual presentation of a clinical case. We are doing this over Teams, we're presenting it over Teams sometime in December, and you pick from 4 options of presentations of different diseases, and you pick which one you want to do and then do research and present on that. There's also online modules to do, so the FIFA have brought out online learning modules, so you need to complete 2 of those and upload evidence of that to the online learning platform that we have. And then also there's some multiple choice questions, as there are with the first module. These are again online on the same day that we have the other summative questions. There are formative examples on the Minerva, which is our virtual learning environment, to give you some sort of idea of the sort of questions that you're asked. In the January exams, there's also an OSCE, so you go through different stations, and it might be taking a history, it might be doing an examination, and that makes up 60% of the marks for that module. The last module is then SPSC 5134M, and that's the Sports and Exercise Medicine Practitioner 1 module. So this looks into putting the principles that you've learnt from the functional anatomy and from the MSK injuries and putting that into practice. So it can be things like how you deal with things at a sporting event, how you would deal with the acutely unwell patient, so we mentioned the pitch side skills training that we did last week. And this is all coursework based, this assessment. So you need to show evidence that you've had a sports and exercise medicine placement clinic, so that's the clinics that are arranged in York. You've also got an MDT case study. So for our year, we had the choice of 2 different injuries, and you need to look into how this case is written up and show evidence for why different parts of it are included. So why did they choose that mode of investigation? What are the modes of treatment for that particular problem? And there's also a reflective bit at the bottom of that. And then also you've got an e-portfolio. So this e-portfolio is an online portfolio, as suggested by the title. And it includes things like reflections from the course, any CPD things that you've done, reflecting on any cases that you've seen, and that is uploaded to the virtual learning environment. So I've mentioned our virtual learning environment quite a few times. The one that we're using at the moment in Leeds is called Minerva. It works what seems like the same as Blackboard to me that we use in HIMSS, and through a mixture of this and Teams is how everything is communicated from our tutors and to each other as well, and it's where all our learning resources and assessment points are. With regards to the time taken for this Masters, so I'm also working alongside this, so I teach at the medical school, and that teaching takes up about 30 hours a week with the actual in-person teaching and the preparation and student support. The Masters, it's advised that you spend 40 hours a week doing the Masters, so 8 hours of this is the study day on Wednesday, but then the other part is sort of self-directed learning. I would say I personally do about 30 hours a week of personal study, so this can include learning the anatomy myself before going into the labs, going over the clinical presentations of different MSK injuries. It can be doing the assignments that we've got to do. So all of that takes me about 30 hours a week, and then I've got the study day on top. So at the moment I do have quite hefty working weeks, so altogether between the Masters and my teaching job, I am doing between 65 and 70 hours a week, which is a lot. Don't really know what to say about that. I'm just a busy guy at the moment, which is one of the reasons, one of the biggest reasons why I'm not doing all the year in one go, because whilst I'm functioning quite well, I think at the moment I can't keep this up for a year. And then the final thing that I want to talk about is support that you get from the University of Leeds and from the course leaders themselves. So there are 4 course leaders that you interact with regularly. They're there on the study days, they're really supportive, you can contact them really easily. You're assigned an academic tutor and a clinical tutor, so together they sort of look after you and make sure that they answer any questions. I have a lot of questions all of the time. Sorry about that. However, all of them are answered really quickly, and there's set Q&A sessions as well on the online study days where you can come along and ask questions or listen to other people's questions, because usually that helps as well. There's also tutors who come in, external tutors that come in as well to give you teaching in the afternoon sessions on the Wednesday. So for example, there was a physio who was giving us teaching on groin injuries and the physio management and rehab of groin injuries the other day, and he works quite close to where I live, so I've asked him if I can then shadow him after Christmas when stuff's calmed down a bit. So I've got experience that way, and they're really supportive, they're really responsive to emails, so they're a great support as well. And then you've got the University of Leeds support. The main thing that I've used them for is for IT support. So I attended an EndNote tutorial on how to use their EndNote. They have a different referencing style at Leeds as well, so they've got their own referencing style, which is great, called Leeds Harvard. So we use that in our assignments, and they've got lots of available advice for that. We've also had people from the University of Leeds talk to us to help us with various IT things. We've had people from the library give us tutorials that have been really helpful, and we've also had someone from the PebblePad team, which is how you interact with your e-portfolio. They've given us tutorials as well, and they're really easy to contact for any other help that we might need. So that is everything that I have written down on my list. I annotated a small list on my iPad when I was on the train on the way back from Leeds the other day. If you do have any questions, drop me a message. I'm more than happy to help. I'm not entirely sure how terms 2 and 3 work because I have not done them yet and haven't looked into them much. There's a project or dissertation type thing in the 3rd term, so I've had a couple of meetings about that, and I need to look into the literature a bit more for that, but I don't really know what's happening in the 2nd and 3rd terms yet. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. When I was applying for the Masters, I couldn't find a video like this that would have been really helpful, so I hope it does help anyone who's wanting to apply to Leeds to do the MSc in sports medicine. I'm personally a massive fan of it. I find the learning really interesting. It's a bit of a commute, but it's only once every 2 weeks, and when I've got the cast off my foot and I'm able to drive, it's gonna be a lot easier. Overall, I would recommend. I think Henley's gone to sleep. I think he's tapped out. Henley, do you want to say the end of the video? He's asleep.